22 hours in Accra. Good evening and welcome to News at 10 on TV3. My name is Bright Nanamfo. Thanks so much for your time. A quick look at the day's news summaries before we hit the main headlines. First, the Inspector General of Police, David Asiedu-Dartey, has insisted the police administration is taking steps to redeem the image of the service. David Asiedu-Dartey gave the assurance when he welcomed 103 personnel who have successfully completed their peacekeeping operation duties in South Sudan at the Kotoka International Airport here in Accra. To tell you more about that, the Agbogbomefia of the Asogli State, Togbe Afede, has charged the Tourism Ministry to focus on improving domestic tourism so it could become an effective avenue for job creation. Togbe Afede spoke to TV3 after observing the rights for the fasting of the new yam, a key component of the yam festival of the people of the Asogli State. The Daboya Polyclinic in the North Gonja district of the Northern region has run out of consumables to save lives. We're told that paper packaging boxes and A4 sheets are now used as patients' folders. That's the state of the facility there in the Northern region. And of course, those were the highlights of the major news on our network. You know, we're grateful that you've joined us on News at 10. Our viewers in Bolga in the Upper East region, if you're watching us from Winneba in the Central region, if you are with us from Accra, here in the Greater Accra region, thanks so much for your time. Let's take our first story tonight. And at least 10 shops and a pub were razed by fire at Asiedu-Dartey at Dansoman here in Accra. The fire is believed to have started about 1:45 p.m. at a pub along the Aliu Muhammad Street and spread to other shops.
The fire, which started around 2 p.m. Sunday afternoon at Dansoman Hansonic Junction near former Vice President Aliu Muhammad Street, razed at least 10 shops. An eyewitness, Kwabena Ofori, explained there was an explosion before the fire spread to other shops on the stretch. Others recounted the fire was as a result of a gas tank explosion burning a vulcanizing shop, carpentry shop, a boutique, lubricants shop, and other adjoining shops.
Immediately we were dispatched from our station, we saw the smoke in the sky, so we could see that the intensity of the fire. So we were able to break through with our fireman axe. That's why we were able to get hard access to the fire, so that we were able to bring the fire under control.
Although the National Fire Service is yet to ascertain the main cause of the fire, initial investigations linked it to an electrical fault. The assemblyman for the area spoke about the incident.
Some people blamed the fire outbreak on a woman who left naked fire here. Some also blamed it on some welders here.
That's a developing story. We'll tell you more about that later on. But let's shift attention to this one. 650,000 people in Ghana are estimated to be suffering from a severe mental disorder. And we're told that a further 2,166,000 are suffering from a moderate to mild mental disorder. Now, the treatment gap is 98% of the total population expected to have mental disorders. Ghana's doctor-to-patient ratio is in the mental health sector stands at 1:1.7 million. The Mental Health Authority has over the years appealed to Parliament to pass the LI on mental health. The LI is to give legal backing to the Mental Health Act 2012, Act 846, which will allow the Mental Health Authority to function effectively after 5 years of the implementation of the Act. Now let's talk about this issue, quite a worrying one. My guest in the studio is a fellow of the American Psychiatric Association with a specialty in adult geriatric psychiatry. And he's been in private practice for 25 years. He's Dr. Jemima Kankam. Good evening.
Good evening.
Grateful for your time tonight.
Thank you for inviting me.
So let's start from here. If these are the figures we're seeing, we're told that 650,000 people in Ghana have some form of mental challenge. Then it is indeed a worrying situation.
It is, and one of the commonest, which is depression, you know, is very common and is undertreated and is under-recognized. One of the problems is even the name makes it seem as if it's all about the mood, but it's really about, it takes away your joy and your hope.
I see.
And that's what leads people to, you know, consider suicide. And that's why people must not be punished
for it
when they attempt it, because we know that the greatest risk to completing suicide is the previous attempt.
Do we know, when we say depression, do we know what it is?
Well, we know what it is. We don't know all the things that cause it. We know it's a medical disorder. And when we say someone has depression, actually, we say they have a bout of depression. And a bout of depression you can have in many conditions. But when you have a bout, it means for many people you feel sad, you don't feel the joy you used to have. But more important is what it does to your thinking. You lose hope. You know, you can't enjoy the things you used to, and decision-making becomes very difficult. So it has an impact. The other thing that is very important.
I see. Even before we talk about what the country as Ghana is falling short of in dealing with it, what, for instance, are some of the causes? If I'm home and my wife is troubling me, my husband is troubling me, can it lead to depression?
It can. So sometimes what we call stress, and everybody and what their stress is, but a constant stress over a period of time can lead to depression. For some people, nothing. They can't know, just like nothing may lead to hypertension. You know, you just have the predisposition. But anything that causes demoralization can lead to it.
Depression.
Yes.
I see.
The problem is people not being aware. So the public awareness is very important.
So we're not aware when we're depressed?
No, you're not aware that what you're feeling is depression.
It's depression.
Okay. So because you can't read anybody's mind. So the first person to feel the change is the person. So now there's more. I see that there's all these campaigns for awareness that if you start to change, so it's a change in how you used to feel, and only you will know that. So the first thing is to educate the public, to say, get help. If you start to feel, you don't feel joy, you can't make decisions, and you worry a lot, okay, and then you feel sad, and it's persistent. It's normal to feel sad over different things, but when it's consistent almost all day, it's lasted weeks, and it's impacting some of your life function, like work, school, your relationship, then know that it's a medical illness.
I see. As the Ministry of Health, as the health sector of the country, are we doing enough to look at this and say that let us help those who are in this state, in this condition?
I think recently, especially since the unfortunate suicides on the college campuses, I think both ministry and NGOs and others are working hard to increase the awareness. But one of the things that is important is, one, the law. The law. We know that the greatest risk to completed suicide is attempted suicide. Just like the person who did not have a complete stroke, you are at increased risk for stroke. So you need help. You don't need to be put in jail.
Incarcerated.
Yes, yes. The other thing is you need insurance to be able to get help. So those are the two main things that are important.
I see. So we are doing something after all.
We are doing, I don't know all about,
is what we're doing enough?
But it needs to, this is becoming, we don't want it to become something that you have, it's already, mental health is always running behind. Okay, so there's never anything like enough. We need to pick up the pace.
Is the solution decriminalizing attempted suicide? Well,
that's a first, because
that's the first thing we need to do.
Because that's from the old English, old European laws. That's when they didn't understand these medical illnesses. But there is no debate about the fact that depression is an illness. There's no debate about the fact that 50% of those who complete suicide had depression. So it's the law being behind the times.
I see. And that's why we might be running into problems. But give me a minute. Let me speak to the head of the head of communication of the Mental Health Authority, Kweku Brobe. He's just joined this conversation on the phone lines. Kweku, grateful for your time tonight. It's been a while, effort to get the Mental Health Act and airline to properly operationalize it. It's not been adhered to because the airline is in place. What has become of it?
Thank you very much, Bright, for having me this evening, and a very good evening to your viewers all around the country. The legislative instrument, I mean, like you rightly said, it's been long overdue. I mean, towards the end of the last parliament, I mean, just before the last parliament was dissolved, we had a lot of hope. We had a lot of, and we had been given a lot of assurance that the legislative instrument was, I mean, to the Mental Health Act was going to be passed. But unfortunately, I mean, as things, came to a crescendo towards when time really caught up on them in Parliament, we realized that it wasn't going to materialize. And I think the main reason why the legislative instrument hadn't gone through and why it, as a matter of fact, why it wasn't passed was the fact that a levy, or the levy that was going to determine where funds were going to go into the mental health fund, had still not been determined. I think then it was with the Ministry of Finance, and it was up to the Minister of Finance to determine where the appropriate funds, or the levy would be taken from to fund or put money in the mental health fund. But we haven't given up on that, and all stakeholders have not lost hope yet. So we still put up the struggle, and we've been doing this together with the media. Somewhere last week, or I think 2 weeks thereabout, we had a meeting. We were called by the Ministry of Finance to come in and give them some further explanation to, the budget. The budget of the Mental Health Authority for the coming year, so that with a clarification, they would be able to properly assign a levy. So we went in with them. We have met with the Chief Director at the Ministry of Finance, and so we were given some assurance. In fact, we have seen quite some appreciable commitment on their part. But what we are asking for is that that commitment now be it turns into action, and then we finally see the levy coming up, so that we we can go ahead and push for the passage of the LR.
I see. Kweku, I'm grateful for your time tonight. At least that's an assurance that we will get the act passed. Is that assuring enough for you?
Well, that's a beginning. That's a beginning. We are all, hoping that it continues because there's too many people suffering.
I see. So now, in wrapping up our conversation, you are suggesting that the first step is to decriminalize attempted suicide. Yeah. Now, if you monitor what we're doing as a society, are we putting enough pressure on our legal systems to ensure that this indeed becomes a reality?
Well, I think there are many stakeholders working behind the scene, and even you having me here and having...
It's one of the steps.
It's one of the steps. And the steps have to be multi-pronged. It's not just waiting for that. Public education is very important because even in the US, people still don't know that what they feel, because it's not just affecting your mood or even your thoughts. It's also affecting your body. So many of the people go to the general practitioners and go to the hospitals, the clinics. But because they don't know, they just give, I can't sleep, or I can't eat, or my body aches. And so even medical practitioners, we're encouraging ourselves, if somebody comes and say, I can't sleep, find out how are they feeling, how are their thoughts. Could this be a depression? So it's everybody doing something about it.
I see. Finally, if anyone is thinking, is in a mood that could lead to depression and perhaps attempted suicide, what would you advise?
Yeah, the first thing is, since it's the person who will first know about it, is to get help, tell somebody about it. And the person who is told about it, don't make them feel guilty. Don't say, why? It's not about why. That's a message we're giving, that this is a medical problem. Get them help. Let them know it's okay. We know this can happen. So don't leave them alone. Go get them help. Go take them to any doctor, because like you said, there are not enough psychiatrists. So go tell a nurse. We are reminding all us, not just the mental, it's all the medical health practitioners. So get them help. But the first thing is, let them not feel guilty, because that's usually what happens.
I see. And if there is no one around the person,
stay with them. Stay with them. Keep talking to them. Because remember, they can't feel hope, and they can't feel joy, and they feel bad about what they feel. So you want to assure them, this is a medical condition. There is help. Just assure them. That's very important.
And so for you, we have to treat this as a medical condition.
Yes, and the sad fact is, over the last 20 years, there is more treatment, safer treatment for them. So you have an illness or a group of illnesses that you have treatment, but we are not recognizing, in the US, only a third of people who have depression show up for help. And when they show up, only about a third are recognized, and only a third further get appropriate treatment. So many segments have to be brought up to par.
I'm grateful for your time tonight with us.
Thank you.
Dr. Jemima Kankam is a fellow of the American Psychiatric Association. She's been in the private practice for 25 years. We'll tell you more on this. She has specialized in public education on mental health, and she'll be telling us more about that in our subsequent bulletins. This is News at 10. Let's step on the brakes for now. When we come back, we'll tell you what the people of Asiedu State have been doing. It is a yam festival, exactly. What has been the change? Stay with us. We're back in a moment. In some other news tonight, the Agbogbo Mefia of the Asiedu State Togbeafede has charged the tourism ministry to focus on improving domestic tourism so it could become an attractive avenue for job creation. He spoke to CV3 after observing the rites for the feasting of the new yam, a key component of the Yam Festival.
The Yam Festival, which is celebrated annually by the Asogli State in the whole municipality of the Volta region over the years, has been key on the tourism calendar. In order to forestall any calamity and negative incident during the festivity, elders of the land gather here at Akwopo, a community in the municipality, to perform the Nubabla rites. This ritual is to cleanse the Asogli State. Nubabla, or holy herbs, are shared and placed at vantage points in all royal houses to ward off evil spirits.
This custom depicts the unity of Asogli State. During this time, we had some evil spirits which entered the town. So the elders come to purify the town, to get rid of all the evil spirits which will come during the Yam Festival.
Performance of the rites then sees the hailing of the new yam, known as Teyuyuru, where newly harvested yams are brought into all divisional communities amidst singing and dancing. Then comes the Jawu, the feasting of the yam. This is the serving of the ancestors, the stool and deities with the first yam meal called bakabake before any living being tastes it. The chiefs and people in key positions also receive their first bite. The Agbogbo Mafia of the Asogli State, Togwe Apoda, was confident about prospect of the festival.
We have seen the need to leverage what we have in the Volta region to get tourists in. Not only local tourists from other parts of the country, but international tourists who will bring in the necessary foreign exchange and enhance tourism's contribution not only to the economy of the Volta region, but to the economy of the entire nation.
He wants more to be done to improve domestic tourism.
If we have to develop tourism, we have to build it on the basis of domestic tourism. If locals don't travel, foreigners will not come in. I don't think any couple will come from the US to travel up, climb up the Araku mountain by themselves if locals are not doing so. That is why we've tried to make our festival appealing to the cross-section of Ghanaians, get them in, and the foreigners will come after them.
Celebration of this year's Yam Festival is under the theme, Traditional Leadership and Development Redefined. It is expected to be climaxed with a grand Deba at the whole stadium on Saturday, September 16.
Well, we're grateful that you stay with us. This is the beginning of the week. Thanks so much for your time. Those of you who watched us from across the country and beyond, stay right here on TV3 because there is more for this week. The show was put together by Asiedu-Dartey. My name is Bright Nanafo. Have a great night. Stay right here on TV3. Good night.